Hello, and welcome to another episode of Solipsist Rambles, where this week I actually want to make a follow-on episode to my last one, number 16, I think. And this topic in general will be ongoing, I think. So, where do we start with this? Okay, basically this comes down to YouTube's internal policies and talking about the state of current media creation and digital content in general. So if you're not here for that topic, then for whatever nebulous thing I named this episode, then I totally understand and feel free to skip it if you feel compelled. But I feel the need to ramble on the subject, and that's the point of these videos. So actually, I don't know if it actually came out before or after my video came out. I think it was right about the same time. But YouTube announced that they were about to, on July 15th, make some changes to their YouTube partner policy, big air quotes, their YPP, as they felt the need to initialize it for some reason, aka their channel monetization policies. And this seems directly related to what I was talking about, but what's interesting is that it isn't, or at least it refuses to explicitly be. And this gets into the reason why I'm having this discussion at all, which is that it is so weaselly. It is the weaseliest shit I've ever seen in my life. That's not true, but I'm being hyperbolic for the sake of the point here, which is that YouTube is just being cowardly, and as with many other corporations, it's a reminder that no promise that a corporation makes you in anything other than a legally binding contract counts for shit. And even if it's a legally binding contract, they have more and better lawyers than you, so it probably doesn't count for shit there either. So I thought I should bring this up. So in episode 16, I was talking about basically artificial intelligence generated content and the way that YouTube has just been flooded with this cruft of all these garbage videos that are created in whole or at least part by AI, by artificial generation that requires basically no actual effort. And the example that I gave in that video was a really extreme example, but if you're on YouTube in a significant way, you see it all the time. Or maybe you don't, because some of it is kind of insidious in how believable some of it can be. Sometimes it's just like there was a video I watched today even where I was like, this voiceover sounds a little bit dubious, and it wasn't until it took a weird pause and I was like, oh, there was either a space mistake or the AI just misparsed that language there and put a pause in the wrong place in the sentence. That's definitely not a human. That's definitely an AI voice. And it goes all over the place on that subject. But I feel like this all is a reminder that, be skeptical of what you see and do your own background research and things like that. Verify, especially if it seems dubious, but especially also if it's just compelling to you and you don't really feel like you need to check it. Check it anyway. You never know. So anyway, back around to the original point that I was making here, which is that YouTube made this very nebulous proclamation on Twitter and on their policy, like one of their internal support documents. And I don't have the original language that they, oh no, it's, well, I don't know where exactly it is. But basically it doesn't, their language was really weaselly, and I have a version of it here that I think I'll just read out because it's worth noting, but I'll throw the links in the comment, or in the doobly-doo if you want to go look at these documents yourself, if they're still up or haven't been changed by the time you get around to it. Anyway, this says July 2025 updates to YouTube Partner Program monetization policies. In order to monetize as part of the YouTube Partner Program, YouTube has always required creators to upload, quote, original and, quote, authentic content. On July 15th, 2025, YouTube is updating our guidelines to better identify mass-produced and repetitious content. Notice the words they chose there. That's my edit. This update better reflects what inauthentic, air quotes, inauthentic content looks like today. This is so weaselly to begin with, and then they basically backtracked on it. And if you take a little moment to think about it, in addition to what I said in the last video as well, you'll realize why. The reality is they have a very significant vested interest in encouraging people to use AI tools, not to make it look like AI is in any way negative, because they and a couple of other major technology companies have sunk so much time, money, and effort into creating and marketing their quote-unquote creation tools that they don't want there to be any part of what they say about anything to cut into their potential profit margins. And I say potential because I'm very curious. Well, in a morbidly curious kind of way, how they're actually monetizing it and how they intend for it to ever be profitable, because the amount of effort they're putting into it and the hardware they have to run and the energy costs and all that, I can't fathom how this will ever be profitable, just like YouTube itself. So that's the fundamental thing to remember through the rest of this, I think, is that YouTube has a vested interest in not saying anything bad about AI. And that is very obvious in everything that came after, because there's a couple of things. This got found and then reposted, but to a bunch of like news outlets and things. A lot of outlets seemed to kind of get it wrong, and none of them seemed to note and in any way YouTube's own vested interest and potential reasoning for this, which is exactly why I'm bothering to make this video, because nobody else seems to be saying it. YouTube is claiming in their response to some of those articles, as well as videos that they themselves very, again, in a Weasley kind of way, put up on the YouTube Insider YouTube channel, which is basically just it's like a PR HR combined thing that's supposed to be relatable because it's presented like it's being done by not a YouTube employee, but holy shit, we'll get into that in a minute. So YouTube's follow-ups on this have been nothing, basically. They keep saying a lot of shit and none of it means anything. So looking at that original language on the policy update that they were announcing was coming, and then the other one, actually, is this the same language? No, they're literally copying it. Sorry, I'm reading as I'm, let me read this part too, because I might as well. July 15th, 2025. This is from the YouTube channel monetization policies, which is not linked anywhere in any of their replies or anything. I had to go hunt that down myself because apparently they don't want people to look at it because they'll realize the policy is garbage too. So the policy says we're making, it's like an alert box. July 15th, we're making a minor update to our quote repetitious content policy to better clarify. This includes content that is repetitive or mass-produced. We're also renaming this policy from repetitious content to inauthentic content. This type of content has always been ineligible for monetization under our existing policies, where creators are rewarded for original and authentic content. There is no change to our reuse content policy, which reviews content like commentary, clips, compilations, and reaction videos. So basically what they're saying without saying it is, it was never about the type of cheap content that is also a problem, like reaction videos, which I've expressed some concern about before. It has value in some cases, but some of it's really lazy. So they're basically explicitly saying it's AI stuff without saying it's AI stuff. Like, what else would you define that as? They keep trying to point to it in some of these videos, the YouTube Insider videos and things like that. They're like, oh, well, it's about people being spammed with too many videos. So we don't want people like reposting their stuff all the time. So just to, you know, get it on people's feeds and that kind of stuff. But we know that's not what this is really about. Like the algorithm, if that even is a serious problem, the algorithm already takes care of it. I've literally never seen like clone videos where people are just re-uploading the same video over and over just to get, or at least on their own channel, just to get people more views on it or something like that. That's never been a thing I've ever seen. So I have no reason to believe that's true. So again, they're just saying it's AI without saying it's AI. They refuse to reference AI in any way because they don't want to hurt their potential bottom line. So they've basically said, we know we have a problem and we're making a vague policy about it, and we're claiming that it will no longer be monetizable. Well, it doesn't even, they don't even say you won't be able to monetize it, which is the weirdest thing about this whole thing. These are just vague policies about overall monetization. There are no hard rules here that I've been able to find anywhere in any of their documentation. There's nothing that says, hey, if we find you have a video that is completely synthetic, we will prevent it from being monetized, or there may be any penalties to your channel. It's like or anything like that. It's just they're explicitly not saying that. Which would be a really easy step to take if they said, if your thing is nothing but AI, you get no money for it. But they won't, because it's their stuff that it's being built with, or might be. So they're acknowledging they have a problem. Like I was pointing out in the last video, they're acknowledging that people's feeds are getting filled up with it. They're acknowledging that probably that it's taking, like indirectly, that it's taking up resources on their own back end that they would probably prefer it isn't, just like I was saying. But then they keep feeding the beast. They're the ones providing the tools in no small part to keep this going. And the fact that they're not taking a stand at any point to prevent it from continuing is the whole point here. They don't care about the platform. They don't care about the user experience. They care about their dollar. They care about their dollar, and they care about advertising. And they don't care that the ads are AI either, or that the ads are advertising AI scams, or are advertising any other kind of scam or dangerous thing or misinformation, which are all things that by policy allegedly get penalized. But if you're an advertiser, you're paying them a couple of cents. So, you know, you can post whatever you want, which makes this whole thing so egregious. And taking a step back from this, well, let's take an intermediate step and talk about the couple of YouTube Insider videos, which I'll link. These were really dismissive, and what's weirder is it's especially egregious if you've read the other postings, whether it's on YouTube's own site or the replies that their support team put on Twitter or things like that, where the language, you read that language, and then you go watch the YouTube Insider videos, and it's being delivered by a guy who's, you know, pretending to just be a guy, and he's just having an off-the-cuff conversation. But then you listen to what he's actually saying, and 90% of the script as it's being said is the exact wording of the two things that I just read you, or the very, very similar language that was used in the replies on Twitter. So it's all PR nonsense. It's all the same loop. And you know, that second part that I was reading was basically reassuring people not making AI stuff that even though their stuff is in fact repetitious and inauthentic, that they're fine. Reaction videos and all that crap is fine. What is it? Commentary clips, compilations, reaction videos. All those things have value sometimes, but there's a lot of crap. But that's not what we're talking about here, and that's not the point. The point here is that they're defending the same thing with the same thing. They wrote like 2 paragraphs of vague language to protect their own interests, and then they're just spewing it out there. And they're not protecting the platform, and they're not protecting creators. And the idea that somehow this is like, YouTube always pitches all of its PR as very like creator friendly. We want to make the platform for creators, but we all know that's not true. If you've got half a brain cell, you know, they just care about their advertising dollar. And so this came back around to a conversation I was already having today, that I had before this. I found out about, I don't even remember how this came up, but I was having a separate conversation about the amount of stuff that can get you in trouble on YouTube, and really all these digital platforms. It's not unique to YouTube in this respect. The amount of like tiny little things. YouTube is so prudish. YouTube is, well, usually very prudish, which is weird because you can find some real crass, explicit, whatever kind of stuff all over YouTube. But even if you're like a pretty sizable creator, you know, like let's say 100,000 plus, you can still very easily fall into the pit of being completely demonetized, having no contact people. This is a specific, like, this is something I've heard from multiple people, including somebody who fits this exact bill. Like, even with a fairly sizable channel that is enough revenue to basically sustain an income, you can suddenly have your monetization ripped out of your channel with like no explanation of what triggered it, no contact at YouTube to find out more about what happened, no way to correct it or really appeal it. You can appeal it, but it will not be, it's never looked at by humans. YouTube's always they always insert that language. It's suspiciously often into their PR stuff of, sometimes humans are reviewing it. It never is, because even people who have those contact people at YouTube are not getting those reviews, even when they can call up a contact at YouTube. So whether this is AI being reviewed by AI. Anyway, my point here being that as a creator space, that if you're trying to make a living out of doing stuff like this, there's no guarantee of anything. And you can be taken down for as much as like swearing a little bit too much, or really at all, or talking about health issues or social issues or even like political issues, which can be a little bit more dubious, but like things that are really not very controversial or problematic, but are, I mean, like the joke in my head was, aren't appropriate for my Christian Minecraft server. But that's basically what it's down to. And ostensibly that's because, YouTube is being careful. But the reality is that the only reason YouTube wants to be careful is because of their advertisers. Because allegedly, and this used to kind of be true, there are lots of issues around monetization policies and how the internet is monetized, and the history of sort of edge cases, looking at how do I put this in a way that won't get me in trouble? Fuck it. Nobody's watching this video anyway. Basically, there's a whole really interesting, fascinating history about pornography and that sort of thing, and how it's been monetized or unable to be monetized for a very long time. The primary reason for that is that the payment facilitators, basically the credit card companies, refuse to process the payments because they don't like it. But the same thing is basically going on here, that YouTube is saying, YouTube and so many of these others, but YouTube is really the most egregious on this front and the largest, saying, oh, well, our advertisers won't like it if you use foul language, or if you talk about this subject or that subject, or so on and so forth. And so you can, be making video game gameplay videos where your reach will be suppressed, or your monetization will be denied, or whatever, because you said gun, because there's guns in the game, because like 50% of games have guns, or you say kill or dead because because guess what, video games have a lot of killing enemies and dead things and that sort of thing. It's also just a natural part of life that you should be able to talk about, and all these other things that are fairly, benign, but are allegedly offensive to advertisers. Meanwhile, the reason everybody and their mother has an ad blocker is because the advertising has gotten so egregious, so offensive to look at. You're not getting ads for like big companies anymore. You're getting ads for conspiracy theories and scams and AI generated whatever, and things that like are not appropriate for anyone to see, really, sometimes. But because that dollar is coming into YouTube's pocket, they don't care. They were given pennies to play a horrific video in front of something somebody put actual effort into, and the fact that they got the money is all that matters. So we have a platform that was never really about creators. It was always about the money, but that was fine as long as it was still useful for creators. We're at the point now where if you don't make a very substantial effort to avoid all of the things that they're trying to throw in your face, and go as far as to like change the language, if you're from the creator side, you have to change the language you use and make up words and all these other things that are, that's a whole other topic that I can't figure out how to make a whole video out of. But I'm so annoyed at and disappointed for a new generation. Like the current generation of kids and young adults do not get to have free speech on anywhere anymore. Like you hear it just in common parlance now, because the language of the digital age and these highly censored platforms is so prolific that people use these weasel words to hide they use it because they're on these platforms, and then it goes into their everyday speech as well. Their everyday speech changes and is like you hear things like I've used some of them before, but just any dubious topic. You've heard some of these words before, like unalive, that sort of thing. That's just the first example that came to my head. But there's a whole generation now that their slang is in no small part either influenced or directly created by a need to avoid using certain words. And it's not like nobody knows what they're talking about. It's just, it actually gets into a subject that I'm really fascinated by, which is something that I think not a lot of people know about and people find really weird, which is like Cockney rhyming slang is a perfect example of this, where the linguistic need for rhyming slang and these sorts of things to exist linguistically has always been about, or typically is prompted by needing to avoid authority and speak in some form of code that couldn't be easily interpreted by people you didn't want to be interpreted by. This is all over all kinds of, all languages, all areas of the world. This is very, very common. But there was always, I don't know, there's an art to a lot of the ones that are kind of well known, things like rhyming slang. And there's even a lot of that same kind of stuff in hip hop. But the current generation is just like, it just feels gross. I feel bad for them because they should have better slang. They should be able to make up things that aren't just trying to avoid things for the algorithm. That's so awful. So back to my original point that just the platforms are getting worse. They only care about their dollar. They are in this sort of self-perpetuating death spiral where they refuse to commit to anything because they have their own interests in mind, but aren't thinking in any way forward well, they are thinking forward in the hopes that they will get paid for something in the future, not realizing that the platform that they intend to do that on will probably be dead, or at least worse, the longer they go on and make it worse, because it's all this self-perpetuating loop. God, can't we just have decent platforms that just it's weird to wish for yesteryear's YouTube, which was also very very problematic in a whole bunch of ways, but I don't know. At least it wasn't this AI apocalypse weasel word garbage. Anyway, I should get off my soapbox, but this is my video soapbox anyway. Thank you for watching another episode of Solipsist Rambles, and I'll see you for something probably not on this exact same subject next time.